Hello, Internet family. This is Anjanette Potter, also known as Adam's Rib, and you are looking at Monday Afternoon Quarterback After Dark. So, I'm gonna, do some updates here. First of all, because I didn't get a chance to read either of the Tony Campolo books, I'm going to extend the book of the month for the bookworm book of the month for another month. I'm trying to get these read right now in light of the whole Roe v. Wade. And as I said, the whole Roe v. Wade thing, the current conditions in our country. I feel like these are timely books because they're it really has to do with where we think that born-again Christians should be in light of current events. So I say that because I can remember back in the 90s, if you wanted to be thought of as a born-again Christian, you had to be, to hear a lot of people tell it, you had to be part of the religious right. Not necessarily where I think you should be. And you hear people saying it now, especially in light of the January 6th attack on the Capitol. If you listen to, and especially the Trump supporters, you had to be alt-right or alt-right or far-right in order for someone to think that your politics were Christian politics. I'm here to tell you that that's not true. I was going to say not necessarily true, but I'm going to say not true at all. Even if you're a person who believes in the sanctity of human life and doesn't necessarily believe in abortion, that doesn't necessarily mean you don't necessarily have to have a pro-life stance in order to be thought of as a born-again Christian. And the reason that I say that is because, I read to you guys an article about how many black churches are looking deeper than just a pro-life stance. And let me say this, if you don't have rights, which is the majority of white males who are alt-right, are far right, if your rights were never gained at the carrying of a picket sign, then it is very easy to adopt certain types of stances. I was looking at a clip here recently over, I guess, what's his name, that Cody guy who has the sister wives. And one of the sister wives decided that she no longer wanted to be a part of a plural marriage. And it's funny to me how a country that, pushes religious freedom, as soon as one of these guys is not getting their way in a situation, you see the real breakdown. So he went into crying and we've done everything we could to love you, and they've tried to reach out to you, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, she decided that sharing a husband doesn't work for her. And I find it funny that I find it funny and ironic that as long as your stances support what a man wants you to do religiously. So I talked about last week, I talked about watching an old episode of Moonlighting, the show that is responsible for the nation falling in love with Bruce Willis as an actor. And I talked about how the one episode I looked at was based on Shakespeare's Taming of the Shrew. And I may go into a little more depth teaching just like I did with the whole Jezebel thing. Because it's funny how many negative names there are for women who don't want to cooperate with a man's agenda. So in this episode, like I said, my girl Kat, woman after my own heart, because she was fighting for her freedom. One of the things that they wanted to test her humility on was her willingness to agree with her husband even when he's wrong. So, as I said before, you know, one of the things that the Petruglio character was saying to his wife was, I am thy husband, and you are supposed to, even if it's the middle of the day and I say that it's midnight, you should say it's midnight. And you have some people who have that approach to marriage and wonder why they're 3-4 marriages in. Okay. Because I do think that there are a lot of people who don't seem to understand how to disagree with a spouse, especially a lot of men. And there seems to be a lot of battles for control. Who's supposed to have the upper hand? If you listen to Christian teaching, God is really ultimately supposed to have the upper hand. Christ is supposed to be the head of your household. But if you look at a lot of churches' actions, it's not Christ, it's males. And the bad thing is, it can be a bad male. It can be a male that's trying to cause you to live ungodly. Because the way we weigh things, I was looking at this Reddit posting, and they were talking about ridiculous things that get called demonic. And finally somebody posted and they said, whether or not something is demonic depends on what it's doing, what kind of impact it's having on your relationship with God. That is supposed to be the bottom line. But so many people want to make it about mankind. And that's kind of what I saw with the whole sister wife thing. You know, first of all, there are no biblical passages that support polygamy in the first place. Okay? And I remember my grandmother years ago, we were looking at a program where a man had more than one wife. And my grandmother said, but Jesus came along. And, you know, New Testament, you know, because back in the day, they did a whole lot of stuff. You know, Old Testament, they did a whole lot of stuff. God, you know, gave them a pass on a whole lot of things. But if you really read the dialogue between them and God, God warned them that if they do some of these things, what's going to happen. And they did it, and what God told them was going to happen, happened. Okay? In the New Testament, you have all the, you have, you know, Paul establishing the churches. And one of the things he said about church leaders, bishops, elders, is that they're to be the husband of one wife. But yet you still got folks putting their own stuff on there and then calling it Christian. So this dude is going through all kind of stuff, and I'm like, I'm glad she's leaving. I don't agree with the whole concept of polygamy in the first place. Okay? But I respect a person's right to live their life however they want, so long as they're not harming others. Okay, no, I don't agree with people getting pregnant, getting 12-year-old girls pregnant, because that's harmful. I don't agree with it. I'm not going to lie. I was glad old girl decided to say, you know what? Now, this dude probably is going to swear up and down that TLC or whatever channel their thing is on, well, that this is the devil and, he's messed up my home. Your home was already messed up. Like I said before, and they're not the only religious group that has adopted a pro-life stance that I feel like you got to watch out for. Okay? If they're incredibly racist, you have people that are what they call Christian nationalists, which is really, when you do your research, it's really white nationalism. Just a lot of stuff going on. I think this world is losing its mind. But as a born again Christian, this is why we have to stay prayed up. I listened to a song that I hadn't listened to in ages because one of my favorite gospel singers made a post being dissatisfied with the Stellar Awards. I don't know what they did to make him comment and say the things he said. But I'm like, first of all, it's only been within the past decade or so that we've been able to see the Stellar Awards at a decent time for Black people. Because there for a minute, we weren't seeing them at a decent time. We were not. I'm not gonna sit over here and lie to y'all. Think about how they used to do Black program. Anything that was largely Black programming, we were lucky we were lucky to see it at all. And if we did see it, it was like 3-4 o'clock in the morning. Okay, I remember seeing the Stellar Award, watching the few times I stayed up late enough to watch the Stellar Awards. They were on at like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Who is up at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning to watch an entire? Well, evidently I was, since I sat over here and looked. But it really used to piss me off the way they used to do Black programming. So for the Stellar Awards to even be on at a time where I can actually be up and watching it is a miracle. It is, a miracle of God in and of itself. Because there for a while, that's why when, they were going through Oscars So White and different other stuff, I'm a Black person who has lived long enough to see Black program. I remember Soul Train coming on at 1 o'clock in the morning. Like, we just used to really get dissed when it came to time slots. So, why be surprised? If anything, so I don't know what happened, but I turned on one of his songs to acquaint myself with his word. And it was a song that we used to do at a church that I used to go to. Now, it brought back good memories, but it didn't, no good memories can erase the abuse that I eventually suffered. So I felt good listening to it because I was like, wow, because people, and I want to go into this for the Perfect Pitch blog, why music is so important, why what you listen to is so important, why it's so important as a born-again believer that you watch what you edify yourself up with and what you allow yourself. I've had secular songs that minister to me. TLC's song, Unpretty, was, a big ministry song. Anything that encourages you and strengthens your faith. But then you kind of almost need that extra bit of that comes with, the mention of Jesus and who we really are in Christ. And many times we forget it, which is why I have the Qualified by Christ blog. Qualified by Christ is for those that are experiencing some special type of warfare that, it can be, stuff that you're going through because of other saints, because, you have people, who make the arrogant statement, I can never be used of Satan. That is BS. Any of us can get on a wrong path. There's a book that I read years ago called Avoiding Ditches. Anybody can get in a ditch because we're given, the giftings that we're given by way of salvation are being placed inside a jar of clay. We are jars of clay. The Bible calls us jars of clay. So we have to daily stay in prayer. We have to daily stay in the Word. We have to daily meditate on Scripture. A lot of people don't realize that, I had to tell a person who I followed a while back, y'all always, quoting the Bible and this, that, and the other. And I said, we keep the Bible before us so that we know God's will in every situation. And even then, it's not always easy because we got to deal with our own private interpretation of what a scripture means. So if it's plain out, don't have sex outside of marriage, and someone keeps trying to get you to have sex outside of marriage, and we know that that person is not from God. So let me go into some of our little news. Our newsworthy things that have happened over the weekend. So Sam Gooden has passed away. If you're an oldies R&B person, if you're oldies R&B person, then you know he was an original member of the successful Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inducted R&B group, The Impressions. I will be doing the Eclectic Weekend, the Eclectic Music Geek podcast this Friday, and I will be putting a dedication in there to Mr. Gooden. Quite a few people have made their transition this week. Olivia Newton-John made her transition today. It's been all over. So many of y'all know her as Sandy from the movie Grease, but she was actually more than that. So she had been around, I think by the time Grease even became a thing, she had been around at least a good 10, 15 years as a singer. One of my favorites when I was a little kid. She had a song called "Have You Never." One of her earliest hits that I really liked a lot. I Honestly Love You, very, very pretty ballad. So she had those songs, and then she went into Grease, and she was in a movie called Xanadu. Not all that, didn't get the high marks that Grease got. I owned a copy of the Grease soundtrack. she and actor John Travolta. So most of you, if you've been a friend of John Travolta, then you remember the nation first fell in love with him as Vinnie Barbarino on Welcome Back, Kotter. So when they made the transition to doing feature films, as he did, they showed clips of them because, you know, people have been, Grease has gotten a bit of a revival. And she almost didn't get the part of Sandy because the people, you know, he had to kind of fight for her to get the part, which I thought was interesting. But aren't you glad he fought for her to get the part? Not that I have anything against any of the other people they were considering, but it wouldn't have been Sandy without her. She was Sandy. So I will be doing a bit of a dedication to her as well. I know. I hate when I put a link in here. So, unless you've been under a rock, if you're a Wendy Williams fan, you've heard that she's got married. There seems to be a bit of a now because her brother is saying that she did not get married. She said she's married, and she's married a guy that is an NYPD officer, New York Police Department officer. Her brother and different other people around her are claiming that her claims of being married are false. Keep Wendy lifted up in your prayers, because I really do believe that there's some stuff going on there that isn't wholesome. I don't think she's been right since her husband got that woman pregnant. People can say what they want to, but I know if I've been married to you and you've been my manager for in the double digits, and you go out here and make a whole entire family with another woman off of money that you're getting from me, I'm going to have problems. There's going to be problems. And I don't think that men understand it. I think that her drug issues are a contributing factor. I think that her health issues are a contributing factor. But the one elephant in the room that nobody seems to want to mention is that husband and that whole adultery thing. Okay? That would, with everything that she's already experiencing, that would be enough to kick the bucket over for me. Okay, I would have to take a solstice. I'm not gonna lie to you. That would be enough for me to have to just go, okay. And I think that because Daily Mail had been, reporting on this man's affair with the woman that he got pregnant for a couple years. The rumor mill about her husband making a baby with somebody else, or having another woman pregnant, or having another woman, period, because it only takes 9 months to have a baby. So, the couple years wouldn't have been a thing. But I would say probably the whole time she was pregnant, there had been rumors about him making a baby with someone else. Okay, so all of what's going on with that whole situation had been rumored about some time. We need to keep her lifted up. We need to keep her lifted up in our prayers. I think that this is a huge thing that's affecting her. I think losing her show has been a big thing, even though she's doing the podcast, which to me, the podcast wouldn't be too bad because it's a little less stressful than an entire network show. But I still, I would rather see her back and whole than see her be trying to do all of this. And, it's the nature of the beast with women who are in our age group. We have a tendency to like to keep pushing, even when we probably need to just go. I tend to keep pushing, which I'm going to continue to keep pushing because, everything that I'm doing with Adam's Rib Media Ministry, I'm the boss with that. So I can continue to keep pushing. But when you are as big as Wendy is, sometimes you have to just go, okay, I want to do this podcast thing, which is bringing back her Wendy Williams experience persona. I kind of like that. I look for her, but I really wanted to, I haven't had a chance to look at Sherry Shepherd yet. These are both women that I admire. And I just really want her to get well. I want her to, people are fighting their conservatorships. And I'm one of those people, even though I'm really not a big fan of conservatorships, I can kind of understand in some cases why people have them. Okay, because a lot of times, people like to attach themselves to you. And you have to be so careful after you get so famous. Well, another person that we have to keep lifted up, Lord have mercy, our girl Anne Heche. So over the weekend, she got into a terrible accident. Her fault. She's liable. She was speeding up and down a residential street, and she ran into someone's house. Now, the last reporting that I've heard, she's still in a coma and hasn't gained consciousness yet. Regardless of what personal opinions you might have about Miss Heche as an actor or person and some of the stuff that she's gotten into over the years, right now, I believe she needs our compassion. Because the behavior that they described is very erratic at best, and usually is a sign of either a person being on a substance abuse, substance abuse, or mental illness, or both. Because many times people who are mentally ill will abuse a substance because they're trying to self-medicate. They may be undiagnosed. I think in her case, she's diagnosed, maybe bipolar, but she definitely is another one who needs our prayers right now at this time. Both she and Miss Williams need our prayers and need our compassion at this juncture. Not your judgment. I'm also seeing where this Alex Jones guy. So Alex Jones is the guy that basically believes that 9/11, not 9/11, that Sandy Brook was not real. So he's a alt-right conspiracy theorist. I believe that the people where Sandy Brook have won their case against him so that he can stop spreading these lies. I'm like, I remember nearly losing it when I saw, The Voice did their dedication to Sandy Hook. I think Saturday Night Live did one. These, the fact that the majority of people who lost their lives were children. I'm like, how could you say something so irresponsible? And out of all the school shootings that's out here or mass shootings, you picked this one. And so I was seeing clips of that, and looks like he also looks like he's being banned from the internet to keep, you have to, one thing people don't seem to understand with free speech is that you have to be responsible for what you put out there. Okay, free speech does not mean we got to all sit over here and let you fill our ears with, our ears are not waste baskets. And so I don't have to sit over here and listen to you spout off a bunch of garbage. And, free speech, I have a right to turn it off. I have a right to click, the little X thing and close the window. I have a right not to listen. If you're talking smack. Tonight, I was going to talk about abstinence tonight. And the reason that I was going to talk about abstinence is because I think that a lot of people have a really grave misunderstanding on both sides of that argument. The people who believe it and the people who don't believe it are having a really tough time understanding what abstinence really means. And so I think I will talk about it on Friday. I will be doing I will be going live at noon this Friday. I will also be doing Eclectic Music Geek this Friday. Like I said, dedications. So I'll be doing dedications for Mr. Gooden and for Olivia Newton-John. The actual theme is going to be, since this is August and it's the month that Michael Jackson joined us in the land of the living, I am going to do dedications to Michael. But this first one this week, I'm going to talk about the Jackson 5, the reason that we had Michael in the first place, and go into the history and play their songs. So the song list this week will be the Jackson 5. And go into their history and talk about, all things there. If you have anything that you want me to play, or if you have songs that you really want to hear, please leave your song requests either on the Station Head app, because you can do song requests on there. Under Adams Rib 66 is my station. Or if you're following me on Facebook, if you're following me on Twitch, Twitter, and any place else you're following me on social media, you can DM me your requests. You can also leave them on the YouTube channel if you want, to let me know, if you have a song by the Jackson 5 that's really special to you that you want to hear, then you can go ahead and hear those songs. I think I'm going to talk about abstinence a little bit more this coming Friday. I did 2 blog posts about abstinence. One was what abstinence is. One is what abstinence isn't. If I feel like it, I will post the links to those this Friday so that you'll know where I am on the whole abstinence thing. I'm pro abstinence. I think a lot of people think that because you save sex for marriage, because I believe in saving sex for marriage, that I'm also gone down with everything else that the alt-right and different other conservatives are doing. I am not, because I am not a conservative. So just because I hold beliefs that are similar in certain areas, that are similar to certain other groups, please ask me before you make any judgments about. I'm not a divester. You will not hear me telling black women to pull out of the black community. No, not when we're the major reasons for most of the movements that are pro-black in the black community in the first place. And I can talk even more about that on Friday as well. But I just wanted to keep my promise to be here at midnight, discuss today's issues. I will see you guys Friday at noon and Friday at midnight for Eclectic Music Geek Podcast. So you guys have a good one. Enjoy your week. And I will talk to you then. Have a good one.